And in the latest developments, the US is sending another escorted aircraft carrier to the Persian Gulf, saying it is a routine mission. Well, to talk more on this, I'm joined now by Karen Kwiatkowski, retired US Air Force Lieutenant Colonel who worked in the Pentagon and the National Security Agency. Well, this new move of warships into the Gulf, as well as the latest massing of US troops in Israel, something we've just been hearing about in that report, they are simply routine missions, according to Washington. Are they?
Well, periodically we end up with 3 carriers in that region. And periodically we stoke the fires of conflict, it seems, with Iran. And certainly, we have troops and bases in Iraq on one side of Iran and in Afghanistan on the other side. So in some ways, this is a continuation of a long provocation with that country. And certainly we work with Israel in doing that. In some ways, this is pretty much the same as we've seen before, and we all hope and pray that it doesn't lead to that spark.
A spark being perhaps maybe that assassination very recently of that top Iranian nuclear researcher killed in that street bombing. Tehran, is it right to accuse the US and Israel over that?
Well, I don't know if it's right to accuse them, but certainly it is logical for them to seek to blame Israel and or the United States. And if you think back to the Stuxnet worm that was unleashed upon some of the industrial and nuclear facilities of Iran, that was traced back to America and Israeli work. So, we fly drones over Iran. We do that really on a weekly basis, I'm sure. So, this behavior that we have, it makes it very logical for the government of Iran to expect that the United States, and to some extent Israel, is behind some of these activities. What they need and what they do not have is the smoking gun, and they don't have that.
Karen, from your past military experience, you talk about the stoking the fires of conflict, and perhaps a spark could ignite some sort of conflict. If there was to be a military operation by the US or Israel, what would be the primary targets, and what sort of form would that military operation take?
Well, certainly the United States is in no position, and I would think has no serious plans of putting any ground troops into Iran. That would be a loss, an instant loss for the United States to do that, because it's just an impossible way to go about doing things.
Why? Because of what it learned from Iraq and Afghanistan?
Oh, I don't think we've learned anything. I think that because Iran is a much different terrain, it has a very effective army in many ways. It can defend itself against that. I mean, we went into Afghanistan and into Iraq. These countries had no defense. I mean, in particular, Iraq. I mean, we had been bombing it for 12 years before we went in there. They had no serious defense. That was a fourth world rank, it was nothing. Same with Afghanistan. These were sitting ducks. Iran is not a sitting duck, and our generals and our admirals know this.
So the presence of aircraft carriers then, the presence of aircraft carriers suggests airstrikes then, obviously.
It suggests that kind of thing, but more than that, it suggests what those carriers always suggest, and that is simply sending a message. I really think that this is more of the same. We've been doing it for a long time. When oil prices drop a little bit, stoke the fires.
You're sending the message. Will Iran then listen? Obviously concerned about closing off the Hormuz Strait that's now being threatened. If that action does take place, then military action has been indeed threatened by the British and the US. So what about then Iran's position? Is it going to stay quiet? Are we just going to see a lot of rhetoric and nothing else?
I think it's going to be a lot of rhetoric on both sides, with continued low-level harassment, as we have been doing. That's what I really think is happening. Now, in a more strategic sense, periodically threatening. And this is not Iran seriously threatening as much as it is ourselves talking about it here in the West, of having the Strait of Hormuz limited or shut down for any short period of time. In some ways, it incentivizes these alternative routes. So this alternative routes for getting the oil to the world markets. So it could be that this is very much a long-term trend to decrease American dependence on the 1/6 of the oil that passes through the Straits of Hormuz.
No doubt, Karen, we'll be talking about this again in the not-too-distant future. In the meantime, thank you so much for your thoughts. Karen Kwiatkowski there, thank you.
Thank you for having me.